Mic test. Hello. All right. Firstly, an apology. I'm sorry for recording this so late. It is already Monday. So for those of you who are looking out for this video over the weekend, I'm so sorry. Um, I'll try to work on it. Hopefully I can get that fixed. Yes. But before, well, what happened to my okay. Uh, so Well, as promised, I will record uh more on LIFO, FIFO, and also weighted average for those of you who might have missed it on stream or the VOD is too long. So what I'm gonna do is just go through it all in one session. So without further ado, let's just get this started. Uh so let's start with the most simple one, which is FIFO. So what FIFO actually means is first in, first out. So first in, first out. So what does that actually mean, right? So let's just say you have an object A, right? That you bought on let's just say you bought on the 1st of January, right? And then you bought the exact same object A, let's call it A1, and you bought it on 2nd of January. Okay. And then when you sell the one that was bought earlier. So you sell A instead of A1. Okay. In contrast to last in, first out, you sell the most recently bought one. So if in the case of LIFO, you will actually sell A1 instead, but we'll illustrate it later. For now, we just keep it at this. So, how do you actually, do a question if they did ask you, oh, using first in, first out? Well, a few ways. The one that I taught my friend was the listing way, where one side is purchases and the other side is sales. The other way is a timeline way. So, okay, let me try to. There we go. Okay, now it looks better. Right. Okay, so let's refer to the question. Right. Let's see. So basically, 5th of August or that, feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want. There we go. Make sure it's all in frame for you guys. Yeah. Okay. It's still a bit off screen. Let's hope this. Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so feel free to take a picture of this. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay. Just remember, don't share it to others. Just do on your own practice. And I think I've said it before. There are publishers for this book, and if you want more practice, I strongly suggest you get the book if you're in Singapore. If I'm not wrong, this is the GCO levels. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna pull up the question itself on my side, so I just don't refer to it over and over again on the OneNote itself. So what I'm gonna do is just draw out, points on the timeline. So okay, so this one ends on 27th August. So we just use like this part to illustrate how the costing works. So the first activity is actually 5th of August, and then the next one is 10th of August. Then 11th, and then we have 22nd. Yep, 22nd. Oh, I drew it too. Oh, well. And then 27th, and then 29th. Okay, let's see if I can. Let me try and do this in a non-stupid way. All right, let me count how many dates there are. Okay, so 5th August is 1, which is a start. 10th is 2, 11th is 3, 22nd 4, 27th 5, 29th 6. So I need 4 lines in between. Yep, okay. And then all right, let's do it again but quicker. 10th, 11th, 22nd, 27th, and 29th. So this is the timeline for what happened. So hopefully am I not able to scroll down anymore? Okay. Right. So what happened on the 5th? You bought 30 tires, right? So you have 30 tires bought for cost is 1,800, so each is $60 per piece, or like per unit. I think per unit is better. Right. And then actually let me zoom in a bit more so I have more space to work with. Okay. So let's go back. So on 5th August, what happened was you bought 30, so you plus 30 units, and then add $60 per unit. $60 per unit. So what this actually, well, the 60 is from 1,800 divided by 30, you get 60. Right. The second event that happened on the 10th, so let's scroll down a little bit. On the 10th, what happened was you bought 10 tires, so plus 10 units. At, let's do a calculation, 650 divided by 10, $65 per unit. Okay. All right, let's scroll up. 11th of August. Oh. Okay. 11th of August, you sold 30 tires. I'm going to use units because it's more widely applicable. So any unit. So less 30 tires. The cost you have to determine based on the costing method that they specified. So we can skip that for now. Let's write out all the events that happened. So here you added another 25 units of tires, right? At this time it is 1625. So alright, let me get my calculator. My math isn't that good. Divided by 25, which is still $65. Sorry. It's still $65 per unit. And then we have 27th, which is a sale. So you minus 10 unit. At to be determined. And then the last day on the 29th, what you can do is well, more bought. So let's see, 30 units. And let me key in the calculator, 1860 divided by 30 units, which gives you $62 per unit. Right, so these are all the events that occurred. And now we can determine how much was actually sold. So let's look at the very first sale, 30 units. First in, first out means whatever you bought first goes out first. So you check if you have enough units in the first batch. We can call it batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, for all the additions if you want for easier use. And this is batch 4 on the 29th. Okay. So let's look at batch 1 first because, well, that's what was bought first, right? So you are just nice. 30 units in stock. So you just take all those 30 units out and you just sell it straight away. So it is at $60 per unit. Right. And then we can go to the next selling point, which is at 27th August, which is 10 units sold. So we check again. Batch 1 has 0 after the 11th August sale, right? So let's look at batch 2. Does it have enough? Batch 2 has 10 units. So what you do is, you just do a quick check. You're selling 10 units anyways, so yeah, the math checks out. You can just take the entire batch 2 and sell it right there and there. So it's 65 per unit, right? So this is how first in first out basically works. And at the end of the you could also add notes. So an example would just be like all instead of all, maybe like 30 sold on that event, which is 11th August. You can add that note in to remind yourself that, yes, I don't have that anymore, right? And then afterwards, you can also say, oh yeah, this one I sold 10 sold. On this one will be on the 27th August. Right. So this is how it goes. And then at each point, you can also calculate what is the value of the inventory. So for example, on the 5th, you have 1,008, right? Because that's what you bought. Assuming you don't have any opening inventory, that is all you bought. And then you have on the what's that called? Sorry. On the 10th, you bought 10, so plus 650, right? And then on the 11th, you sold let's see, 30 tires. So it's from batch 1, so you sold 1,008, right? And then when you get to the next point of purchase, 22nd, you added 1,625, right? So yeah, this is just how you can do it. I'm just gonna draw dots to show the relationship. Okay. It's not pretty, but unfortunately. Okay. The next one would be on the 27th, where the sale occurred. So it's minus your second batch, which is 650, right? And then finally you have a last purchase of 1860. Yeah. And then the actual amount you can just calculate it yourself. And yeah, this is basically first in, first out. For those of you working in fast food, retail, supermarkets, usually this is how the goods flow, because usually these items have expiry dates. So you want to sell things that expire sooner, so you don't lose the item after it expires. After an item expires, almost no one will want to buy it, so its value will drop significantly. So supermarkets want to actually avoid that. So what they do is they sell things that will expire first, or they sell it at a discount as well, just to promote it a little more. But yeah, that is first in, first out. We can now move on to the next one, which is let's just do last in, first out first. LIFO. Right? Last in, first. Oh. That's interesting. First out. Okay, last in, first out. As the name implies, it's the exact opposite of first in, first out. So let's see if I can copy over that table, because I want to save some time here. Wait, where did my scroll suddenly disappear? Oh no. Okay, wait, hold on. Sorry, minor technical difficulties here. Alright, I just used the pen function. Okay. And what I'm gonna do is just do a copy if I can. That's not enough. Okay, let me do this instead. Okay, so I'm gonna do a copy and paste. And then what I'm gonna do is just move it around up there. Actually, let's just do it here. I think that might be easier for us. Right, okay. So let's switch back to this. And all right, let's get it. Right. So same deal. First purchase. I'm gonna draw it slightly offset because I don't want to squeeze in. Actually, let me see if I can. Okay, there we go. Right. 5th of August, you bought 30, so plus 30 units. At $60 per unit, right? And then your inventory value would just be 1,800 given in the question. Okay. And then on the 10th, you bought another 10. So plus 10 units, right? Okay, maybe I shouldn't. Okay, let's move this item down because we want to add notes underneath it. And then let's continue with this drawing. So plus 10 units at this one will be 65 per unit, right? And then let's look at the other. Actually, yeah, let's just draw the value out. This will be plus 650 as given in the question. And then on the 11th, what you do is well, you sold 30. Okay, so this is where things get a little interesting. Last in first out says that you sell, you know, you sell things that have arrived later. Last in first out. So what came in? What was the latest edition? It's actually batch 2, right? Because 11th August is before batch 3 even arrived. So you can only take from batch 1 and 2. So which one do you take first? You take the one that has arrived later, meaning it's batch 2, right? So you look at your batch 2, you only have 10, unfortunately. So what you're going to do is you split, right? So it's 10 units at $65. Per unit, I'll just go leave it out. And then the next one will be 20 units because 30 minus 10 is 20 at this is 60 per unit, right? So in this note you say minus 10 on 11th August, and then here you say minus 20 on 11 August, right? So let's scroll down a bit to determine the value. Okay, maybe I should move it down even more. Let me do that real quick. Hang on a second. Let's just drag it down a bit more. So this all. Oh my, what happened to my? Okay, very interesting. Sorry about that. So this is just for us to get more space. So we can write down things. Two ways to calculate exactly how much inventory you have left. You can use the total way, meaning that you. Okay, let me draw this down. Minus. So up here, 65 times 10, 650. So you have minus 650 minus 20 times 60 is 1,200. You can do this method, which is it could be faster. Actually, about the same. Depends on personal preference. And then the other way is you just see how many of each batch in your warehouse after the sale. So 30 minus 20, you have 10 units. Okay. On let's just put a day after so as to not confuse us. You have 10 units left. So that is well 10 times 60, 600, right? And then for this one is on 12th of August, you have none left. So it's $0, right? Okay, maybe I don't add the dollar sign here. 0. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, if you look at it, the math is the same, right? 1800 plus 650 minus 650, these two cancel out to be 0. These two, 0. So all you do is 1008 minus 1002, 600, which is what you have written down up there as well. So it's just it's a quick check that you can perform to see if you did your math correctly, right? Okay, so let's move on to the 22nd of August. So what you did was you bought 25, so plus 25 units, right? At this one will be 1625. I believe it's 65. Let me make sure, yeah. 1625 divided by 25, 65. Yep, okay. $65 per unit, right? And well, the thought process is still the same. At this point in time, it's also good to keep track of how much you have left, which is 10. Uh, sorry. Yeah, you'll have 10 in your first batch. My bad, I scrolled too far. Yeah, you have 10 in your first batch, but it's personal preference. So let's just draw a line down. So this is plus 1625, right? Not much to do here. The next point of sale is, well, 27th. So what do? You sold 10 tires, right? Minus 10 units. At 27th. How much did you sell? I mean, what was the cost of the units that you sold? Well, what was the last thing that came in before 27th? That's right, it's the third batch, which is 22nd August, right? So, you just first check if there are enough in your third batch, which you haven't touched yet. So, you have 25 units, more than your 10. So, you can just take the whole amount. So that will well, wait, what am I? Okay, that will bring it up to minus how much is this? Minus 650, right? So that is, oh my. Okay, wait. Let me do something real quick. It's just bothering me. My bad. Okay. Let me add it back. 10 minus 10 units. Okay, so yeah, so this last in first out is a bit counterintuitive because it doesn't really resemble the natural flow of goods usually. And I think for that reason, and also for another reason which I'll point out later, IFRS actually doesn't allow inventory to be valued this way. But for those of you in the US using GAAP, it's allowed. So you can still use this method, and I think it might be examinable as well. So good luck out there. So okay, let's go back to this sales date, right? And we can actually see how much is left after this sale. So let me see if I can erase out some of this to add some notes. Okay. So on the 27th of August, 27th of August, you sold 10. So you have 15. Okay, on 28th of August. Let's just say the day after. You have 15 left. Right. So that is 15 times 65, which is, let me press my calculator, 16 times 65 times 15, sorry, 975. So what is your total right now? You have 975 plus 0 plus 600, which gives you 975 plus 600, which is 1575, right? 1575. And if you key in the very long line at the bottom here, that gives you 1800 plus 65 sorry, plus 650 minus 650 minus 1200 plus 1625 less 650, 1575. So a good way to check your work is just use this method. Uh, but again, in exams, you might not have time to do it. So your best bet for exams, at least exam preparation, is to actually do as many questions as you can so that you feel confident enough to do one of the method fast and reliably, and then you pray really hard, right? Because either you draw out everything or you visualize everything. Uh, Visualizing is way harder, so I just prefer to draw it out a little. Just like minor notes is enough. Don't need to be that detailed. I'm just going detailed because I want to illustrate how the process works. Okay, so let's see on the 29th, you got another 30 units, right? You bought another 30 units at, this time it is 1860 divided by 30, which is $62 per unit, right? So $62 per unit, that, oh, sorry. Did not mean to do that. Let me scroll down a little bit. So there wasn't any more sales, so thankfully. And that's just plus 1860. So let's do a quick check, alright? You have 30 units of batch 4 fully untouched, right? You have 15 units of batch 3 from that previous sale. And then you have 0 from batch 2, right? And you have 600 from batch 1. So let's just do a quick check, right? So 600 plus 975 plus the last batch, which is 1860. 3435. So let's compute the very bottom line that's gotten very long. 1800 plus 650 minus 650 is 0, minus 1200 plus 1625 less 650 plus 1860. 3435. Yep, so that's the way you can check it. And yeah, that is how we usually do this sort of questions for last in first out, right? So now what I'm gonna do is move on to the last item, which is weighted average. So this one would be a bit more confusing. And I'll explain why. Because after every purchase, you have to recompute your cost per unit. So what doesn't change? So for when purchase, when you have a purchase, your cost would change. The triangle sign means change, by the way. And if there's a sale, your cost per unit. Okay. I do not know why they are not giving me more space, but okay. Cost per unit, no change. No change. Purchase cost, the cost per unit will change. But actually, yeah, okay, then the value would change as well. Right. So let's show you what I mean by this statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy over the exact same table again. So bear with me for a bit, please. This one. Control C, V. Okay. Let's bring this up a little bit. Hopefully with enough space, but I then copy the August now. Alright, that's fine. Not too big of a deal. Alright. So let's... Oh my, all the August now. Alright, that's fine. So let's start with 5th of August. I'm gonna do something a bit different. Oh, what happened? Okay, sorry about that. I'm gonna do something a bit different. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to rename the events here. So regardless of sale or purchase, we gotta do something about it, right? So oh, the eraser. There we go. I so erase this fourth one as well. Okay, so oh my goodness, what happened? Right. Okay, well that's unfortunate. Let me redo this. I guess my handwriting needs some improvements, but that's fine. Fifth, and the last one is gotta zoom up. Okay, this one got messed up too. Oh no, that's fine. All right, and the sixth. Okay, so uh let's go to the first day. Event one, you bought 30 tires. Okay, so I think for this it's better to do a table. So what I'm gonna do is, uh, we can call it date, or you can also call it event. I'm gonna use event because date is longer to write. The next thing would be your quantity. So in weighted average, how you can imagine it is, imagine you have a pile of coins, right? All these are coins, right? If you toss a coin in, does the date of manufacture or the expiry, I mean, usually coins don't have expiry date, does the date where you got the coin matter? If the coins are all of the same value and look the same and functions the same, they will likely have the same value regardless of when you got the coin. Well, unless it's some vintage item, but if it's this many, like mass produced like in countries, then again, most of the coins have the same value, right? So usually if their things are too numerous, or if they are, basically identical and doesn't have an expiry date, usually you use a weighted average because it's just easier to keep track, right? All you have to do is just you count the number of piles. So once you added in that coin, you count the number of pile, and then uh you will have recorded how much you spent to buy these coins. So you just add up like all the money they've spent so far and just divide it by a number of coins, right? So that's how it goes. So in order to illustrate this, let's go through this real quick. Um, Quantity, value or amount is the next one, and this will be a dollar sign. This will be unit, right? So okay, and let's go with event one first. Oh yeah, the last one will be cost. Cost per unit CP. Okay, I shouldn't use the abbreviation. Cost per unit. Okay. So let's start with event one, right? Quantity they bought, you 0 plus 30, right? Assuming you started off with 0, right? So plus 30, your value that you spend is 1,800, and your cost per unit would be 1,800 divided by 30, so you get 60. Right. So that was easy. Day two. Oh my, why did it turn into a triangle again? I just noticed. Sorry about that. Let me just replace this. Oh my, okay. My 8 just doesn't. You know what? It's fine. So, wow. Uh, on day two, you bought another 10, right? And your value per amount is 650 plus 180. So you could write it out, but you'll get a lot longer after a while. So plus 650 equals to 2450. Let me just make sure. It's been a while since I did head math. Okay, 2450 is correct. So 2450. And then your cost per unit would just be, okay, so we put equal sign equals 30 equals to 40. You just take 2450 divide by the total amount that you have left. So 2450 minus divide by 40. You get 61.25. Right? Now here's where the interesting part comes in. Event 3, if you recall, it's for this example, it is a sale, right? So you have 40 minus minus 30, right? So you get 10 left. You just take 10 times your cost per unit before the sale as your value. Because, well, let's just say that once you throw it into the pile, you just spread out the cost across all the units. So that's what they mean by average. Weighted just means that as you can see, right, some of the items, there are more in each batch. So the higher amount would drag up or down the average in general, right? Actually, sorry. Incorrect phrasing. Let me rephrase that. So you see in event 1, you got 1,830 units of it, correct? If you bought the second batch and you place it into the same pile, let me scroll up again. If you place stuff in the same pile, it just becomes the pile, right? And what happens is, you notice that the second batch average cost, if you look at what happened earlier, the average cost for second batch is 65. Let me scroll down a bit to show you. Yeah, so second batch is 65, meaning that you'll bring the average up, right? Because if you add a bigger number to a smaller number and you divide it by quantity, it always goes up. The only difference, and this is what weighted means, how much it goes up. So it doesn't go straight to 65 units, right? In fact, it just rises a little bit. The reason is because you have a higher quantity of the cheaper tires. So that's what weighted means. So the number within the batch actually affects how much your cost per unit increase or decrease. And oh my goodness, I just realized they changed my August. No, my penmanship. Okay. Right. So the cost per unit after a sale is exactly the same because you didn't add to the pile, right? And the value of the pile decreased in proportion to the amount decreased, so it doesn't matter. That's what they mean by convenience, because you don't need to recompute every single time you do a sale. You only need to recompute every single time you make a purchase, right? So why is this convenient? Imagine a grocery store, supermarket, right? Whenever they buy something, they don't just buy 1 or 30 units, they buy thousands. Well, it depends on what item it is exactly as well. But they can buy up to thousands, hundreds, So it's easier to just recompute once at the point of purchase than to continue figuring out which item is left, how much it costs after every sale and every purchase. So this is why sometimes supermarkets would use this method. And I think in the real world they actually use hybrid. So they use a mix of both to simplify or to better reflect how their process works. So for every store they could do things slightly differently, and depending on how they do things, yeah, they can change the costing method as long as it makes sense and as long as they stick to it, right? So let's go back to this question. Event 4 is another purchase. So you have, well, from what you got before, 10 units left, plus your 25 units, which is 35 units, right? And then, well, 35 units, and the total value is 612.5 plus what you bought, 1625. which is, let me use my calculator, 612.5 plus 1625 gives you 2237.5. Sorry, pardon my numbers. I should have actually made my screen bigger, but we'll roll with this, right? So 2237.5 divided by 35. Oh, the numbers are getting worse. Okay. I'm just gonna round it. 63.93. So there's a dot 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 behind, but I'm rounding it right now to make it more presentable, right? And then, well, that's that for that day. Let's move on to event number 5. Event number 5 means it should be a sale. Yeah, 27th. So you have 35 units less of 10. So you get 25. Your cost per unit stays the same, so you just have 63.93 times 25. So I'm just gonna key into calculator. There might be some slight rounding error, but usually for exams like these, they would accept up to a certain like error. So for example, maybe like 1 or 2 decimal places, so plus minus zero point 0 something, maybe. Uh, but yeah, usually for like this sort of things where decimal points are involved, the examiners are slightly more lenient when it comes to the final answer. But it's always best to be as accurate as possible. If you're using a calculator, don't round onto your very last amount, basically. Just keep using the same value if possible. Yeah. And the last one would be another purchase. So you have 25 units left over after the sale, plus the last 30 units. And then your value will be 1598.21 plus 1860 equals to, hold on, let me key this in. 1598.21 plus 1860 gives you 3458.21. Okay. And your cost per unit would change. So this 55. So it'll just be your amount divided by 55. So it's 62.88. I'm just rounding it. Right. So then your final answer will actually just be for if they ask you inventory value, weighted average is the easiest for inventory value because you calculate it on the spot. Right. Whereas for first in first out and last in first out, you have to actually keep track every single after every single transaction, be it purchase or sale. So what does all this actually mean for us, right? So given that all the conditions are the same, right? Let's actually compute what the value of each method is. So it's gonna be slightly different every single time. Wait, why is it? Okay. Interesting. Wait, plus 650, blah, blah, blah. Right, okay. Plus 650 minus 1800 plus 1625 minus 650 plus 1860, 3485, right? If you look at the one at the, if you look at LIFO, last in first out, you have 1800 minus 1200 plus 1625 minus 650 plus 1860, 3435. Slight difference, right? And then for this one is 3458.21. So all these are slightly different if you notice. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can actually see the full thing, right? So you have this, and then you have this. Right. So depending on the way you use depending on where you cost certain items, the final value will be different. The middle sale and the cost of sale figure will also be different. So that's why you need to read very carefully in your question what is the method they use. Because the moment you use the wrong method, the whole answer is wrong. Unless you're extremely lucky, which I don't think the examiner would phrase the question to allow you to get away with it. That is one thing to note. Okay, let's move on to something else that might also be interesting. So let me pause the recording for a bit here. Okay, I've resumed the recording. I just extended the lines a bit and thought about how I want to present this. So let's go with it, alright? So under each method, what happens when your prices go up? By price, I mean price of good. So what happens when things get more expensive for you? And your cost, right? It will increase. So what happens when your price of good increases for first in, first out? Well, if you can remember, first in, first out means you're selling things that you bought earlier, which you bought at a slightly lower price than right now, right? So your cost of sales would actually be, okay, say $100 at the start and $200. Say you bought 10 of each, right? And you sold. So this is what you bought. You sold 10 units. Okay, so it's the same scenario for everything. Maybe it's easier if I say batch 1, batch 2. So let me just erase this. Okay, so batch 1, 10 times $100. Okay, batch 2, 10 times $200. Okay, and then these are what you bought, and what you sold is 10 units. Okay, so this is the scenario here. Now let me erase the cost of sales real quick. Just draw at the bottom, a bit lower. Cost of sales, COS, or COGS for cost of goods sold. I realize you can't see this too well, so let me see if I can. And let me see if I can zoom in on this. Please. Oh. Okay, I think it worked. Alright, oh. Okay, yeah, it's viewable. Alright, I'm so sorry about that. So cost of goods sold, it'll be 10 units which you sold times your 100, right? So you get 1,000 cost of goods, cost of sales, and then your inventory value at the end of everything will be 10 times 200, right? So it'll be 2,000. Okay, same scenario, but for last in, first out this time. Exact same scenario. I'm just gonna copy this, right? Okay. Okay. Then let's do a computation real quick, right? So you bought then sold your cost of sales, because it's last in, first out, it'll be 10 times your 200. So it's 2,000. And your inventory will be 1,000 from your first batch. So 10 times 100. Okay. And then, well, can you see the difference? It's flipped, right? That's because in this scenario is the quantity is the same for both batches. So if it's a different amount for both, you're gonna see slightly different figures. And also the number of goods sold is different as well. So, but you can kind of get the idea, right? when times are bad per se, your cost of sales actually is higher than if you were to use first in first out. What does this mean? Right? Your profit, assuming that you sold at 300 for both. Okay? Your profit is 10 times 300, which is 3,000, minus your cost of sales, which is 1,000 here. However, when you look at the first in, first out, and you look at their profit, you just have the same thing, 3,000 minus 1,000, which is 2,000. Right. So when things get more expensive, price of good increase, it could mean two things. Okay. If it's only a slight increase, it is normal inflation, meaning that economy is doing relatively well actually. And you report higher profits. That makes sense. However, in the second scenario where there is hyperinflation, meaning inflation that is way beyond normal, like I'm talking 3%, 5% or more, that is quite dangerous, meaning that your value of money decreases way faster than you think. Then actually LIFO, last in first out, is better because it reflects a lower profit. Times are tough, you know. But the fact is that you could be using last in first out to really understate your profit, meaning that it is lower than what you would expect and lower than what is really, really there. So that means that okay, so for accounting, you want to be as accurate as possible, but also as timely as possible, meaning that you're up to date. So one is accuracy, meaning that you as accuracy, reliability. I think reliability is a better word. So you want your figures to be easily traceable. You can easily say, oh yeah, this one is from batch one, and this batch one cost this amount, right? But you also want it to be timely, so any changes in market, you can easily record it down as such. And it's almost always a trade-off between the two. So you want to find a good balance, basically. Last in first out argument is that it reflects exactly what the market is, right? Because your cost of sales is taking from the most recent purchase. So it's the most recent good. Yeah, it's really up to date. But it really isn't very reliable because essentially you are just saying, I want to go against how businesses are usually run, especially for perishable goods. You almost never sell things that expire first, right? So that is that. And okay, let's actually move on to what's that called? Weighted average, right? So alright, let me hopefully can copy this. Hopefully it works out. This is the first time I'm using this software. Hopefully I get better at doing it. Okay, wait, oh. There we go. And bam. Okay, so let's calculate cost of sales real quick. Well, you bought 10 at 100. So it is 1,000. Let me just 1,000 plus your 2,000, which is 10 times 200. Assuming the sale is at after both events, by the way, divided by 20, right? So it is just 150 per unit. Okay, wait, divide by 20. So that is one part, right? This is to calculate cost per unit times 10 units which you sold. This is what you sold. So your cost of sales would just be 150 times 10, which is 1,500, right? Your inventory value would just be, well, 3,000. Okay, instead of 3,000, let's use the cost per unit method, which is we calculated before as 150. 150 times your remaining units, which is 10, which is also 1,500. And then for profit, you take 3,000 minus off your 1,500 cost of sales. This one. So I realize it's the same number, which is a bit of oversight on my part. Okay. So if you take a look at the profits of each costing method, you notice that most of the time, the profit for what's that called? For weighted average will sit between the two first in first out and last in first out, usually in I'll say more than half of the cases. If I'm not wrong. It could also be just all of it. I didn't do extensive calculations for this. So I'll just say most of the time, right? Your weighted average will sit in between because the math just makes sense. It's an average between the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. So you just have the middle ground. And I guess that's why it's accepted in IFRS because, well, it's just a more neutral view per se. But it's also very specific in its use case because of the fact that you pull everything together and sometimes, it's not uh it's not the right way, like quote unquote correct way, because it's not how your business functions. But it's still accepted as long as you can provide justification and you can provide proof. Right, so let's go through again, okay? First in, first out, IFRS, accepted. GAAP, US, accepted. Okay. Last in, first out, IFRS, not accepted. GAAP, US GAAP, accepted. Weighted average, IFRS, accepted. GAAP, also accepted. Right. The mechanics of each, FIFO, LIFO, first in, first out, last in, first out, is built in the name. So first in, first out. Okay, I realize I cannot just underline the name because it. Right, so use a bit of English to make sense of it. First in, first out just means whatever you bought first goes out first. Last in, first out means whatever you bought last goes out first. Okay? And then weighted average is just average in the name. Weighted just means the change in cost of goods in the cost per unit is dependent on the quantity of each batch, basically. And yeah, to be honest, I think that is it for this entire section. I know it's a lot to take in, so let me zoom out here for the full picture. I do believe I can upload this, so I'm gonna try and upload this as well, for your reference. And yeah, it is great teaching here. It's just a recording, but I had a lot of fun doing this. For those of you who don't know, all of these are filmed without prior preparation, so plenty of things I could get wrong. And if I do get wrong, do tell me in the comments. Say, hey, for this part, I think your explanation is either unclear or wrong, flat out wrong. So do let me know. Uh, I'm willing to take in feedback, and if you need further clarification, if this method of explanation doesn't work for you, I am perfectly alright with coming up with another explanation. As you see in my VOD with my friend, um, I'm willing to tackle the same definition from different angles because I know everyone has different ways of learning, different ways they understand the world. So I want to relate that to them. And yeah, if this explanation doesn't work for you, don't be discouraged. It's just a different learning style, different learning pattern. It's perfectly fine. Just drop me a message. I will come up with an explanation that might work for you. We'll try and error our way there. Yeah, if not, really, thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I hope it's a 1 hour. Oh man. Okay, thank you so much. See you and take care. Bye.